And is he about to get Nick Foles yet again? This is the harsh reality of pro football. This is NFL Total Access. Welcome into NFL Total Access, which we can go ahead and rename NFL All Access because we've got your All Access pass to every single NFL team. Plus, it's game week. Steelers, Cowboys kicking off the preseason Thursday in the Hall of Fame game. Hello, I'm Omar Reese, and today we start where the news hits hard in Indy with the Colts and Frank Reich delivering a painful update on Carson Wentz.
Everyone was in agreement that it was very plain to see that Carson had an old foot injury, probably a high school injury that was a broken foot sometime in high school that he did not know was broken. And then what happened the other day was in the course of practice, over time, whatever the years, something happens, just the right pressure at the right time, the right movement. All of a sudden, that little broken bone that was in there that was lodged in it comes loose. The time frame is 5 to 12 weeks. That's the time frame for this injury. That's a big range, okay? And there's no way to know where you're going to fall in that continuum until you get into the rehab process. Now, obviously, we're optimistic and hopeful that we can be on the front end, somewhere towards the front end of that. But the reality is you can be anywhere in that spectrum.
That certainly is a long range, 5 to 12 weeks. Carson Wentz is expected to be out. Let's say hello to our general manager, Scott Pioli, and our former Bengals and Browns receiver, Andrew Hawkins. Hawk, we'll start with you. What do you make of the latest on this Carson Wentz news?
5 to 12 weeks is a very, very long window. Very unfortunate for Carson Wentz, who's battled injuries for much of his career, specifically over the last couple of years. What I do know for the Colts is you cannot plan for a 5-week return, understanding that the floor is 12 weeks. So they're going to have to find a replacement, and honestly, a replacement that they're going to plan on being in that spot for the remainder of the season. And then if and when Carson gets healthy, there'll be the age-old question that he has seemed to face for the last couple of seasons, and that's, is he the guy that should come in and be the quarterback? That's a question that we don't know. If they get the right guy, if they go get a Foles or somebody similar, the reason why this was a great place for Carson was because the receivers are trending upwards. The running game is nice. The O-line is one of the best in the league. So if someone else comes in and plays successfully, who knows if and when we'll see Carson for the rest of the season.
Hawk and Omar, this is exactly what every team and every leadership group expects and faces. They know that there's going to be a problem. They just don't know what it is and when it's going to happen. And I got to tell you, listening to Frank Reich, I absolutely loved the way he approaches, because he's been in this league so long as a player, as a coach. He knows something's going to happen, and it really doesn't matter. He's not looking for people to feel sorry for himself. He just knows that he leads. I had a great football coach tell me one time, you know, you're going to have problems, and you know what? Nobody cares. Actually, there's going to be people happy that you have issues to overcome. This isn't the first injury that we've seen. I mean, we've got Michael Thomas with a situation, and it's not going to be the last one we see. This is the NFL, and this is what happens every week, every season, every preseason. So this is also why sometimes when you see coaches and general managers, when they're being asked how good they think their football team is going to be in training camp, or when they're asked in the offseason, they don't know. What they're trying to do is manage expectations, because they know that anything can happen at any point in time. And I love the way that Frank Reich approached this today and addressed the team and addressed the media and anyone who wants to follow them.
This is such a fascinating story, Hawk, because as you mentioned, that roster seems to be Super Bowl ready if they can get the quarterback situation figured out. Now, we remember the last time Wentz got hurt with a Super Bowl roster behind him. In stepped Nick Foles, and the rest, as they say, history. Now Foles is a third-string Chicago Bear and was asked earlier today about a possible trade to the Colts or anywhere else.
Listen, Frank Reich is one of my favorite, if not favorite, coaches of all time. He understands me as a player. He understands me as a person. But, you know, right, I haven't had any talks with him. I don't know. I'm a Chicago Bear right now. But I think if he knows me, he understands. I mean, y'all watched the 2017 season in the playoffs where he changed the offense and built it around me, and y'all saw what happened. So he understood my mentality as a player. and he was able to build it around me and put me in a successful position and my teammates. But that being said, they have Carson, and Carson and I have a lot of history. I have a lot of respect for Carson. He's a tremendous player. He's going through adversity once again, but he'll bounce back. And you know what? He might miss a few games, but I know he'll be back out there. But we haven't had any talks, so right now I'm a Chicago Bear, and I'm going to keep slinging it with these third stringers, and we're going to dice them up.
It'll be an interesting next few weeks. Meanwhile, the team, all these AFC powers are chasing the Kansas City Chiefs, trying to replicate the Patriots' recent run of winning, losing, and then winning again the Super Bowl in back-to-back years. Patrick Mahomes tweeting Summer Camp 2021, the peace sign with all those weapons. Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Andy Reid, and Travis Kelce. In the Super Bowl, we saw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get after Patrick Mahomes and that Kansas City offense. I think a lot of people thought that that was the blueprint to stop Kansas City. The counter to that might be, well, the Chiefs were without those two tackles. So, Hawk and Scott, we ask you, how do the Chiefs and Eric Bieniemy, Andy Reid continue to evolve this offense to keep those AFC defenses at bay?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change a whole lot because they still have the best skilled players in the National Football League. Now, obviously, it's going to evolve to some degree, but what you can't take away is they have the best group of skilled players without doubt. So they're going to make some changes. You know, one of the things I'm going to see change with their skilled players, though, is last year, remember, everyone was talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He didn't come to the table with everything that everyone thought. But remember, this was a rookie player in the middle of a pandemic that didn't know what to do or where to go. I think this is going to make a big jump for him and the football team. So as we see the Chiefs evolve with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think that's where there's going to be some bit of a change. I think the other thing that will add to the change is getting this group of offensive linemen. It's almost a complete makeover. I think it's 4 out of 5 starters are going to be different this year. And what's going to happen is, as they gel, as they see what the strengths and limitations of that offensive line is, that's what they'll start doing more. But they have so many good players, there really isn't going to be that significant or dramatic of an evolution with this offense because they're still going to be fantastic.
I'm with you, Scott. It comes down to protection. I do not think this offense is going to evolve. I don't think Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy are going to change much, and they don't have to. There's not a lot of levels of evolution left for this offense. They have arguably the best tight end of the last decade. They have Tyreek Hill, who's been one of the most, if not the most dynamic player in the league since he's come. And, of course, Patrick Mahomes. And I want everybody to realize how above the norm talented Patrick Mahomes is, even by great quarterback standards. I mean, he's the most talented quarterback we've seen to this point in his career since we've been watching the game. And what that means is there's not a lot you can do. If you keep him protected, he will make every throw. He will find the open guy. His football IQ comes natural to him. You don't think over the last decade, man, how do they evolve the offense around LeBron James? No. You give LeBron James the ball, you give him pieces that he needs, and you let him do what he does every single year. And that's what you get with Patrick Mahomes. If you just protect him, trust me, this offense will be as good as you've ever seen it.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes, Eric Bieniemy, and Andy Reid kicking off year 4 together in the Chiefs. We'll get to see him for the first time this season next Saturday in Santa Clara against the 49ers. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Elsewhere, the Giants continue to await word on when Saquon Barkley will return. There you see Daniel Jones working out at training camp. Of course, Barkley tore his ACL week 2 last season. Joe Judge addressed the media a short while ago.
You know what, he's making a lot of strides for us, and I don't want to go ahead and make any predictions or anything on Saquon, but I will say that, you know, this guy is showing progress, tangible progress every day with our medical staff, with our strength staff. He comes out here and works. Right now, we've really mirrored his rehab to what our players are doing on the field practice-wise to make sure that he's building up that same volume, that same intensity. We can go ahead and put kind of apples to apples with what he's done on a daily basis compared to our players that are in practice. Gives us a better picture in terms of where he is physically.
And for more from Giants camp, here's Kim Jones.
Here at New York Giants training camp, Saquon Barkley continues to work on the backfield with the training staff. And Daniel Jones absolutely did not have his most accurate day as a passer. All of that left Sterling Shepard, the slot receiver, as the best Giants offensive player on the practice field today. As far as the defense goes, at one point the entire unit, including coaches, had to run a lap. After practice, linebacker Tay Crowder told the media it was because of a lack of attention to detail. As we know, Joe Judge doesn't like that. The Giants' defense overall is far ahead of the offense, especially cornerback James Bradberry, who's been absolutely terrific. You could ask Kenny Golladay all about that.
Thank you very much, Kim. Time now for our latest headlines, and for that, we welcome in our Tom Pelissero joining us from Bengals training camp. Tom, but it was the attention that was grabbed in Minnesota over the weekend with a COVID scare. What's the latest you can tell us about that?
Well, Omar, the Vikings are still down 3 quarterbacks, including Kirk Cousins, because of COVID protocols. But they added a couple quarterbacks today just to try to get through these next few practices. This all started on Saturday when rookie Kellen Mond tested positive for COVID-19. Cousins and another quarterback, Nate Stanley, both were ruled high-risk close contacts and forced to isolate. Now, Jake Browning was the only quarterback left. He took all the reps in practice on Saturday night, performed very well, and actually is now the favorite for the number 2 job. Today, the Vikings worked out 3 quarterbacks. They signed one of them, Case Cookus. He was on the field today. Then this afternoon, they claimed Danny Etling off waivers from Seattle. All the while, the Vikings had another quarterback, former Hawaii star Cole McDonald, sitting in a hotel room in case they missed out on their claim of Etling. Here is where we stand. Mond is out at least 10 days because of his positive test. Cousins and Stanley could be back before the end of this week as long as they continue to test negative. Vikings coach Mike Zimmer is over all of this, reiterated today he doesn't understand why people don't get vaccinated, particularly when there's competitive impact if something like this happens during the regular season. Only unvaccinated players can be forced to isolate without a positive test under
$36.6 million extension, and afterwards met with the media.
I'm relieved. I mean, it's behind us now. Just come out here ready to practice, and I know all it's been handled, it's taken care of. I'm very happy where I am, so I just come out here and focus on getting better every day.
He doesn't say much, and you know, I think that sometimes seems like he's not a leader in that regard, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. I mean, he's a leader in his actions. Excited for Nick. He's certainly deserving. I mentioned in the press release, he's a team guy all the way, so excited for him.
Elsewhere in the AFC North, the Ravens adding to their defense, officially signing old veteran Justin Houston. Of course, they drafted Odafe Owe in the first round of the draft this past spring, but they still have in that secondary good old ball hawk Marcus Peters.
Some guys play with their eyes up. Some guys play with vision. They talk about in lacrosse. It's one of the things they say about my daughter. She plays with her eyes up. She has great vision, field vision, you know. So Marcus Peters has that too. But you combine that with talent and technique, then you've got something, and we've got something with him.
I know, a big part of what I do is getting the ball back, and that ultimately helps our team get wins. You feel me? But I do a lot of other things too. You know, with this, me knowing how much football I know, and me giving the game out to everybody else. You know, any ways that I can. You know, I'm open arms, open books for everybody just to read as far as my teammates. You know, and I give that game. You know, because the game was gave to me.
As for the reigning AFC North champs, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're looking to regain their form in the pass game. A huge year 2 for Chase Claypool would go a long ways in helping that. He caught up with our Andrew Siciliano and Aditi Kinkabwala earlier from Steelers camp.
What does year 2 feel like for you? Because not everything is the same. You got a new offense to learn.
Yeah. Year 2 is a little bit about learning the new offense, but it's a lot more about building on your previous year. So the game slows down a little bit in a good way, and you can really dissect some of the things that are about to happen, and then you can look back on what just happened.
Okay, so tell us about the new offense, really. What do you like so much about it? What we talk about pre-snap motion and jet sweeps, what is Matt Canada doing that really suits you and everybody here? Yeah, he's getting into a lot of sets in different ways, which I think is nice because you can run the same play and make it look like 3-4 different plays. It's, half of the offense is the same as last year, and then some just new terminology. So it's not a whole new offense, not a whole new playbook, just some of the things that are different.
How's your quarterback look?
Oh, he looks great. Yeah, he's putting the ball where it needs to be, and that's all you can ever ask for.
Does the arm feel, because Ben's talked about, hey, it took a little bit, obviously. Like a lot of baseball pitchers say, you can come back the next year, but really it's 2 years later where your arm feels like you're throwing the fastball like you were before the surgery. Do you see that with Ben?
Yeah, I've never really understood why people always question his arm strength. I don't think he's ever displayed in a game where his arm strength was an issue. His timing's so good, even if his arm strength wasn't where it was, his timing's so good that he can time it up to where he doesn't have to throw a bullet in a tight gap.
How about mentally where he is with the new offense? He joked with us about needing flashcards this summer and getting his family to give him pop quizzes. Does it feel a little slower when he's calling out the plays to you?
No, someone sent that article to me and I was questioning that because he knows obviously the playbook inside and out. So I think him learning the playbook is, flashcards, that's common, right? I was doing the same thing.
I have no problem with that.
It doesn't mean he doesn't know offense. He knows the offense.
I want to ask you a question that Kurt Warner asked Patrick Mahomes earlier today. We just replayed that interview. And he said, how do you look at the last game of last season? You guys lost to the Browns. Obviously, it got out of hand early. They lost to the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. He said, do you just put it away, forget about it, and move on? Or do you use it as constant motivation?
Yeah.
What do you guys do?
Yeah, I think it's, definitely motivation. You never want to – I think we probably had the worst playoff start in NFL history, and then we still try to battle back, which was, a testament to our will. But you use that as motivation, but you have to understand you have a new team, and you have to build on, what – the guys who were here last year, they have to build on that, and the new guys have to find that same drive that we have.
It's game week, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Thursday night football. Crazy.
You going to play?
Yeah, I'll play.
You going to play?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Okay. Well, you just did. Breaking news, everyone. Chase Claypool says he's going to play until this, seen by the coach, and then maybe not. Regardless.
Yeah.
Congratulations on a great rookie year. We're looking forward to seeing you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Chase Claypool, wide receiver here of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Thank you, Chase.
I'm sure that answer got Mike Tomlin's attention. It's a legit question. Who's going to be the Steelers' #1 receiver? They were the only team to have 3 or more players with more than 800 receiving yards and at least 6 receiving touchdowns. Claypool, Juju, and Deontay Johnson looking to build off their stellar 2020 season. So as we say hello once again to Andrew Hawkins. Hawk, we ask you, who do you think will emerge as Big Ben's favorite target?
The beauty of the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is that there wasn't really a true #1. They had so many weapons that Ben can go to at any moment, and you can't really take a single person away. That being said, if I had to lean a direction, I would probably lean in the direction of Deontay Johnson. I love Chase Claypool. He was a young guy last year. He'll get even better this year, but he did sneak up on a lot of defenses. And what happens is NFL defenses figure out a way to take away the thing you are best at. The thing with Deontay that I like is his route running ability, his ability to not only be the long ball guy, be the short ball guy, get open in one-on-one coverage. And for quarterbacks, they love a guy who can separate, and Deontay Johnson separates as good as any wide receiver in the league. Also, we talk about Ben Roethlisberger's age, and yes, he still has a good arm. Yes, he still has a fastball, but he does like to get rid of the ball quick now and let his guys do all the run-after-catch action, and that's what Deontay Johnson does really, really well.
You look at those numbers, they're not far off from having 3 receivers with 1,000 receiving yards. Of course, we know that they drafted Najee Harris in the first round. They have a rebuilt offensive line. So at the end of the season, Hawk, are we going to be talking about the Steelers as this running, ground-and-pound team or a pass-first team?
I think they're a couple seasons away from being the ground and pound that we're used to in Pittsburgh, but the addition of Najee Harris, the offensive line help and development is going to be huge. So I would expect a much better balance than we've seen a season ago, but I do still give the edge to the passing game, especially with Matt Canada and his way of scheming some of those passes and plays. And like we talked about, all these weapons on the outside, I think they'd be crazy not to utilize them in a big, big way.
All right, Hawk, well, we look forward to perhaps seeing Najee Harris on Thursday. We heard Chase Claypool say that perhaps he's going to play. So before we see the Cowboys on Hard Knocks, it's going to be the Steelers versus the Cowboys in the Hall of Fame game Saturday at 8 o'clock Eastern. We had 200,000 fans collectively at the inaugural Back Together Saturday event, and our playmaker, Michael Irvin, caught up with Dak Prescott. But later in the show,
we ball out in our sleep. It's not just about our QB. We got Kelsey and Tyreek. A 6th straight AFC West title would be sweet, but reclaiming the Lombardi's #1 on our sheets.
Busy offseason for Patrick Mahomes. He became a father, raised a bunch of money for his 15 and Mahomes Charitable Foundation, and rehab from foot surgery. He joined our Hall of Famer Kurt Warner earlier on Inside Training Camp Live.
All right, welcome back to Chiefs Camp, and obviously this guy needs no introduction. I'm here with quarterback phenom Patrick Mahomes, and I want to start with just going back because 2 years ago, you guys win the Super Bowl. Last year, you go back to the Super Bowl, you lose the Super Bowl. Which of those two games do you think about more?
I definitely think about the loss more than the win. Not finishing it the way we wanted to, the way we lost the game. I think that will always haunt me. I feel like we didn't put our best effort out there, and when you're playing a team of that caliber, you get blown out in games like that. So that'll definitely drive me for the rest of my career, not just this season.
Do you go back and watch it? How many times have you watched that Super Bowl?
I actually only watched it twice on film. I watched it basically that week after, and I watched a little bit more closer to the season. And, you learn a lot from it. You learn how defenses might play us this next year because that defense had a success. You learn about the little mistakes that we made here and there that really caused the game to be that much of a wide margin. But at the end of the day, you learn how to get better, and hopefully that'll help us going into this season.
And what was your takeaway? Because I know you're always watching film and you're always trying to scrutinize what you do. What was your biggest takeaway from that game that you say, can't let that happen again?
I think it's just how we started. We had a couple of misreads of not doing the right read or calling the play kind of in the wrong direction, and then us just not executing as a whole early in the game. And you just see how it snowballs and how when you're playing a team of that caliber and you don't start off the way that you want to start off, and they do, then you can really lose a game that you want to win so badly.
So how do you use that game? I hear people talk all the time is that lose the Super Bowl, let's put it in the past and let's move to the next season. And then there's other people that say, man, we're going to use that as motivation and continue to kind of bring that up to spur us on to greater things. How do you apply that Super Bowl this season?
Yeah, I think you use it a little bit, and at the same time you have to get past it. I think you get past it now. You're in training camp, you're working, you're going in, but just knowing going into every single game of this next year, of knowing that anything can happen. I mean, we had been in every single game pretty much my entire career. We were one score game. We're always battling at the end. And then to have a game like that where you kind of get blown out, that anything can happen if you don't come ready to play. And so that's something that I know I will be thinking about going into every single game to make sure that I dot my I's and cross my T's, I guess you would say, and make sure that I'm ready to go for every single game.
And I love that because we all look on the outside and we watch you play. MVPs, Super Bowls, 99 rating in Madden, all this stuff where we say, man, this guy's so good, so young, he can't get any better. I know that's not how you approach it. What are you working on in the offseason to say, okay, if I want to take my game to another level, if that's even possible, what do I have to do?
I think mentally, I watch a lot of other top guys in the league. I watch guys that are similar to me, like Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and stuff like that, and see what they're doing to have success. And then I watch guys that play the game differently than I do. Guys like Tom Brady, guys like Kirk Cousins, guys that play from within the pocket and they have success that way. And I try to find the way to make it my game. Take away little things that they do in their game to make it my game. And then physically, I try to prepare my body better and better every single year. I think I'm still growing up, I guess you say. I'm still getting older, and my body is still maturing, and it changes every single year. So I try to make sure that I go in the offseason, recalibrate, find out where to get myself better physically, and then try to come into that next season in better shape than I was the year before.
And I love that. But how do you balance the two? How do you balance going, I got to practice being Patrick Mahomes because that's where I'm going to live, but also go, oh, let me take this from Tom Brady, or let me take this from somebody else. How do you balance practicing those two things?
It's been something that I've done kind of my entire career. I remember being in college and Coach Kingsbury making me watch Aaron Rodgers and just watch how he plays the game. And I see certain things and I'm like, man, I like that. I could do that. I can do similar stuff to that. And then there's stuff that he does that no one else in this world can do. And so for me, it's about finding the things that I think that I can do, work on them in the offseason, in training camp, in situations like this, and see if I can kind of adapt that into my style and my game.
Love it. Okay, you surprise us all the time. You got no-look passes, you got jump passes, you got the Wasp in the Super Bowl. Do you ever surprise you with things that you do out here?
I definitely try more out here in training camp than I try anywhere else. But there has been times and situations in games where I've done stuff and it's really caught me off guard, I guess you say. I remember the Denver left-handed pass thing. That was nothing I had planned. It was like the last second I threw it. I remember in Tennessee when I jumped, I was just trying to get my legs out, from under me, so I didn't get kind of sandwiched in there, and I jumped it through the ball. But, I mean, I just try to do whatever. I just try to compete. I think that's the end of the day. What I do is I just compete and try to win, and sometimes stuff happens I'm not planning.
And trust me, we love watching you compete and doing those things. But you heard it here, right? He surprises us every week. Sometimes he even surprises Patrick Mahomes.
Thank you, Kurt. Time now for today's training camp spotlight presented by Little Caesars. Hawk and Scott, protecting Patrick Mahomes clearly was an offseason priority for Brett Veach and Andy Reid. They made several impactful moves on paper. Hawk, when you look at those moves, will they actually translate to better protection for Patrick Mahomes?
I think they will. I mean, if you had $500 million, would you protect it? I mean, 2 years in a row?
Heck yeah.
Absolutely. I think the investments that you've seen them make are going to add depth to that offensive line. They've seen an O-line that was riddled by injuries, and they understand they can't let that happen again. They get Laurent Duvernay-Tardif back. They get Lucas Niang back. They trade for Orlando Brown in a huge trade with the Ravens. They go hit it in free agency with Tooney, with Blythe. They even address it in the draft, right? You are seeing them put so many pieces in place because they understand this is the catalyst for them to get back to where they want, which is being the Super Bowl champion. So I do expect them to be able to protect him because they have the depth, because they have so many guys with versatility that you can really plug and play.
Hawk, I agree 100%. They are absolutely going to be able to do a better job of protecting Patrick Mahomes this year. You know, it's just going to be a matter to see how these pieces begin to gel. They picked up a lot of players that are going to be very good starters. The other thing that you mentioned, that I'm glad you did, Hawk, is that they got depth. So what's going to happen here is they get in Joe Tooney, who I believe was one of the best acquisitions in this year's free agent class. He's not only a center, he's not only a guard, he has so much position versatility. So built into getting a starter, they also have backup starters just in Joe Tooney. Picking up Orlando Brown, LDT returning, Kyle Long, drafting Creed Humphrey. Now they've got all this talent, they've got all these players. The key is going to be how well they gel. Because remember, with the offensive line, it's not the individuals. It's always the sum being better than the individual parts. Now, the thing that's going to be interesting this year is they're only going to have 3 preseason games this year in which to start working together. And usually in preseason games, you don't want to use all of your best players for every snap. So they're going to have to do some things this year in the preseason and in preparation and during training camp to make sure that this group starts coming together. But, Hawk, I agree with you 100%. They absolutely got better, not only up front with starters, but with their depth.
It's a good point, Scott. How they come together will be key. Clearly, Patrick Mahomes, great player, great ambassador for the NFL. So when you're looking at the Chiefs' objectives in 2021, getting back to the Super Bowl, what or who might be the biggest obstacle standing in their way?
Well, I think the biggest obstacle for the Chiefs can only be the Chiefs. They are such a good football team. I don't think that there's teams that can match up with their players that are the key positions. They have the best key position talent in the National Football League. And I think one of the other things they have is one of the best coaching staffs in the National Football League. So right now, the only thing that I can see slowing them down is them getting in their own way, and or I hate to say this about any football team, but the injury bug. If they can avoid injuries, like any great team, they should be great. This is a terrific football team, I think, Hawk.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, we talked about them needing to protect Patrick Mahomes. They protected him a year ago. I think that season goes differently. Now, if I look externally about the biggest obstacle, I would actually say the Cleveland Browns. You talked about talent for this Kansas City Chiefs football team. If you look at the Browns roster, they have that level of talent. They don't have Patrick Mahomes. But if you look at the ways that the Browns address their defense, you can tell that they were trying to build up, understanding that the road to the Super Bowl goes through Kansas City. And they're the only other team I can look at talent-wise to say, man, if the leaves blow the right way on the day they play together, the Browns could cause some problems for them.
Yeah, the Browns taking the Chiefs to the brink of that divisional playoff game last year, now adding Jadeveon Clowney, John Johnson, Troy Hill, other members of that defense for Cleveland. Should be interesting should they meet once again in this postseason. Hawk, Scott, thank you very much. In Minnesota, the Vikings, like several other teams, still dealing with COVID issues. They placed 4 players on the COVID list today, including Kirk Cousins and rookie quarterback Kellen Mond. Head coach Mike Zimmer expressed his frustration with unvaccinated players over the weekend and did so again today.
You know, going through all the things that you had to do last year, masks and, you know, protocol and travel, and you can't leave for a day, you can't go out, see your family, you know, all the things. You can't go to dinner when you're on the road. You got to wear masks on the plane, all that stuff that, you know, was just difficult. And I just don't understand. I just don't understand that, you know, I think we could put this thing to bed if we'd all do this, but you know, it is what it is.
Come on back tomorrow for another 2 hours of total access to NFL training camps. The birthday boy, Tom Brady's on the field in Tampa. Dak Prescott's on the mend at Cowboys camp, and we'll take you from Seattle to Baltimore, from L.A. to Chicago, from Jersey to Philly. Your all-access pass to NFL training camp is good all week. Come on back tomorrow, 6 Eastern, for more NFL Total Access. But first, we've got a road trip to... Big news of the day out of Indy. Carson Wentz having surgery on his injured foot, expected to miss 5 to 12